Dear Ambassador Stellin, dear Michael, dear members of the jury, dear teams and participants, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you. It's my very great pleasure. For all of you who don't know me, by the way, I'm Marie-Laure Salle. I'm the director of the Graduate Institute, so it's my very great pleasure to welcome you to the Graduate Institute for the 2021 award ceremony of the Geneva Challenge. As you know very well, the Graduate Institute launched the Advancing Development Goals contest, now called the Geneva Challenge for short, in 2014, with the generous support of Ambassador Jeno Stellin, who is here with us tonight, and under the patronage of Kofi Annan, whom the Graduate Institute is proud to count among its distinguished alumni. Kofi Annan presented the challenge in the following way. The Advancing Development Goals contest is a worthy and important initiative and will encourage and inspire young students to be key agents for development and peace. The 2021 award is special in a number of ways. 2021, first, is the first year when the jury is not chaired by Ambassador Stellin. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank Ambassador Stellin very much for his long-standing and still current support of the challenge that certainly would not exist without him. These thanks are expressed on behalf of all of us at the Institute, but also of all the participants and alumni of the challenge since 2014. Let me also give very warm thanks to Michael Moller for stepping in this year and for accepting to become the new chair of the jury. Dear Michael, it's really a great honor for us that you accepted this. I remember when we discussed it last year, and I'm very pleased that you said yes. It's definitely a great leadership for us to have, that you are accepted to be on the jury. I also want to extend our thanks to our distinguished members of the jury who spent quite a lot of time with us and looking at the different projects, but also to members of the steering committee who are doing all the background job throughout the year, and in particular to Martina Viarengo, who has been working very hard throughout the year on the challenge. Last but not least, a big thank you to Lena Menge, who is really organizing everything, and to our events and communication teams at the Institute for all their hard work. This is definitely an intense teamwork that stretches out over the year, and I'm impressed by the energy, the motivation, and even the joy that the challenge generates year after year. Another reason why this year's award is special is that it comes after a strange period. Don't need to explain to you why it was strange, when everything, as you know, moved online, including the last year's jury. Hence, as a consequence, we decided to invite not only this year's finalists, but also the finalists from last year, who did not have the chance last year to come to Geneva. And so I'm very happy to welcome 34 participants. I think it's about half from this year and from last year. And a big warm welcome to all of you. Give yourself a big round of applause. For this 8th edition of the Geneva Challenge, students have been asked to address the complex issues arising from crisis management. The many crises that the world faces undermine human security, exacerbate inequalities, and hold back the local and the global socioeconomic, political, cultural, and environmental goals called for under the Sustainable Development Agenda. Management of today's crisis must go beyond one-size-fits-all schemes. Successful crisis management today requires being interdisciplinary, obviously, recognizing our close interdependence and analyzing the ways in which individuals, governments, civil society, international organizations, and private sector organizations can and should respond. By the way, some of our participants were here yesterday when we had Bertrand Piccard tell us exactly the same thing and talk about this necessary interdependence and interconnection between the multiplicity of actors. One further complexity in today's world is that we have realized, particularly clearly through the last 18 months, that we may have been reaching a threshold where we need to be thinking at the fine but consequential line between crisis on the one hand and more radical forms of uncertainty. Crisis we can try and manage. To use the words of economists, crises stem from the known unknown, the unknown that can be modeled through probability calculus. But how do we handle radical uncertainty, the unknown unknown, that cannot be in any way anticipated? How do we prepare ourselves? How do we react? How do we construct systems that are more resilient, not only to crisis, but also to uncertainty? This, it seems to me, will be and is already our collective frontier. 269 teams representing more than 1,000 students, graduate students from 15 different countries registered to take part in the 2021 contest. There were 17 semi-finalist teams, which all presented very innovative and cross-cutting solutions. Today, I'm very much looking forward to listening to the assessment of our jury on the presentation of the 5 projects that took place earlier today. But before we launch into this part of the evening, we have the immense pleasure and honor to welcome online Professor Jeffrey Sachs. And I don't know if Jeff is already online. He is here. So we're welcoming Professor Jeffrey Sachs. Hi, Jeff. Really nice to see you.
How are you?
Who will give us a keynote speech in which he will discuss the intersections between the SDGs, the climate crisis, and the pandemic recovery, with a particular focus on the role that youth and universities can play as we move forward. The discussion will then be moderated by Professor Martina Viarengo, Chair of the Academic Steering Committee, as I mentioned before, and Associate Professor in the Department of International Economics. It's probably not necessary to introduce Professor Sachs, so I will be very short. Professor Sachs is Director of the Center for Sustainable Development at Columbia University, is President of the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, and a Commissioner of the UN Broadband Commission for Development. Professor Sachs has been advisor to 3 United Nations Secretaries General, and he currently serves as an SDG advocate under Secretary General Antonio Guterres. He is, as you all very well know, one of the clearest voices that are currently being heard, championing profound and necessary transformation. I will certainly not launch into a listing of all your publications, Jeff. Let me just mention the title of your last book that was published in 2020, The Ages of Globalization, Geography, Technology, and Institutions. Allow me finally to add a personal note. Let me say how particularly delighted I am to be welcoming Jeff today, as him and me have a very old connection, bringing us back to a world that seems, you will probably agree with me, Jeff, so far away in many different senses, so different, nearly unthinkable, and in many ways also probably a world that has framed many of the problems we are having to confront today. Again, a big thank you to all of you who are making this wonderful project a reality. A warm welcome again to our contest participants from last year and this year. And Jeff, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. How wonderful to be together with you. Let me thank you for this great pleasure and honor to just say a few words before we hear the exciting decisions of the judges on the wonderful projects from all over the world. Thanks for the Geneva challenge. This is the challenge of our time, finding solutions so that we can achieve the future that we want. And I have no doubt that it is today's young people that will find those practical solutions and lead us forward to solutions. It's been the job of my generation to give this incredibly hard homework assignment, not in the formal way, but of leaving a mess that has to be cleaned up right now. And we've seen how hard it is just in recent weeks, especially at COP26 over the past 2 weeks, how hard it is for our governments, our legal processes, our diplomatic processes to get real on these subjects. I don't doubt that it's important to negotiate over words like phase out or draw down or the other phrases that were heatedly debated at the COP. But the idea that it was somehow a triumph that 29 years after the signing of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, the words fossil fuels appeared in the document, and this was hailed as some kind of breakthrough, shows a little bit how pathetic this process is, because that's no breakthrough at all. We've been talking about fossil fuels for 29 years. We just haven't stopped using them and have therefore made the world a lot more dangerous during those 29 years since 1992, when the first treaty was decided. And I know in my own country, in the United States, while President Biden, whom I like, came to Glasgow and said, the US is back, the US is leading. Ladies and gentlemen, the fact of the matter is the US Senate hasn't voted one meaningful piece of climate legislation in the 29 years since signing the Paris Agreement. And the reason is that it's a corrupt institution, politically broken, vastly overrepresenting the interests of big oil, big gas, and big coal, not the interests of the American people, nor actually the public opinion of the American people who want transformation. But we're in the hands of corporate lobbies, not in the hands of problem solvers. Young people have, of course, changed the politics first, and now the practicalities of action. I think that the most important thing that we can do right now is the innovations to achieve the goals that we have declared, and to commit in absolutely practical ways. That means in specific public investments, in specific financing, in specific timelines and public policies to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, the objectives of the Convention on Biodiversity, and the objectives of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Agreement, which is part of the UNFCCC, so that we actually get to where we need to go on time. When you do a high-level analysis, could we really decarbonize by 2050? Could we afford to do it? Do we have the technologies at hand to do it? When you do the kind of big picture analytics that I've been trying to pursue in my career as a macroeconomist, the top line picture is, yes, we actually could achieve the goals that we have set. And a wonderful confirmation of that this year, as an example, was the work of the International Energy Agency in its report on net zero by 2050, which put in a macro framework the nature of the investments needed between now and 2050, especially in solar energy and in wind energy, that could get us to net zero by mid-century. And I think the same is true for all of the other sustainable development goals. Could we end poverty? Yes, actually, we could. And China, to its enormous credit, a country of 1.4 billion people that was extraordinarily poor in 1980, ended extreme poverty and really did it, not just in propaganda, but on the fact and on the ground. Could we really achieve sustainable land use and stop deforestation and actually move to net carbon storage on a large scale? Yes, the answer is yes, because most of the environmental destruction taking place, for example, in the Amazon or in other forested regions, is extraordinarily low efficiency or no efficiency at all. In fact, the cattle ranches that are created get abandoned within a few years because they didn't belong in those places in the first place. Could we achieve universal digital access for a new digital world society? Well, the strange thing is half the world is on internet right now, but of the half that is not, at least 80% is physically within the reach of internet, but doesn't have the income at the family level to support connectivity. So even for universal digital access, we're not talking about an insurmountable technological, or hardware challenge. We're talking about a financing challenge, a way to ensure social inclusion even more than the physical hardware. This is my sense of all of the goals that we've set. The goals that we have set from a macro point of view are achievable, and from a macro point of view, that means waving one's arms and talking about generalities, achievable in a financial sense as well, because none of these goals is so costly that they're going to break the bank. So what stands in the way of success? I think several things clearly do. One is the still grip on politics of the old sector lobbies. The oil, the gas, the coal industries still have quite a weight in politics in the fossil fuel producing regions. Even though they themselves know that they're playing an end game, they're fighting hard to make that end game last as long as possible, though it's utterly socially destructive what they're doing. A second point is that our governments are not so good at long-term policy planning. So they're not setting that macro framework, the kind of thing that I would look at. What is the broad budgetary framework that is needed to achieve, say, decarbonization of transports, which requires the transformation to electric vehicles, for example. They're not setting that long-term framework in many parts of the world, the US being a prime case, where we're rich enough to do all of these things, but we don't think ahead clearly. But the final point that is absolutely clear is that the macro framework absolutely needs to be joined with the local context, local realities, the delivery systems, the participation, the communities, the business models on the ground to make these transformations effective. Throughout this day, it just happens, I've been speaking about sustainable energy for all as an example, which I know some of the teams have been working on, or sustainable access to water and sanitation, which other teams have been working on. And all of the discussions involve the combination of top-down issues, policy framework, public investments, and finance, with the very much bottom-up questions of design, implementation, community participation, local structure, local modeling, accountability, and gender equality, gender participation, and so on. So this is where I see the phenomenal projects of the Geneva challenge being so remarkably pertinent. The projects that I was able to have a look at are all about design and implementation, how to solve these complicated problems in reality with real people in real communities on the ground, making these systems work. And I think that the ingenuity, the innovativeness, the ability of young people uniquely, I think, to see how our new digital technologies enable new approaches and new business models and new social models, I should also quickly add for clarity, is an enormous part of the strength of the projects that are part of this year's Geneva Challenge. Let me just end by saying that I'm honored to help lead a network of around 1,500 universities and think tanks around the world, in virtually every country of the world, for the United Nations, called the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network. And I want to make sure that our worldwide network learns of, appreciates, and promotes and disseminates the remarkable projects that the Geneva Challenge and your initiative has brought forward. We have a lot of information networks. We can get your successful programs, the winners that are going to be announced, into a global stage so that the great ideas and the demonstrated successes can be learned, can be understood, can be appreciated by students in other parts of the world, and of course can therefore rapidly disseminate and help us to accelerate the process of reaching the future that we so much want and we so much need. So congratulations to all of the participants to this wonderful process. Thank you for inviting me to say a few words just now. Please count on me and count on the Sustainable Development Solutions Network to partner. And I'm excited to hear the results of this year's competition. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Sachs, for this very insightful and valuable talk. As you highlighted, the role of global cooperation is going to be key. The COVID-19 pandemic has hit the Sustainable Development Agenda hard, undermining social improvements of the past decades. Reversing some of these setbacks will require significant increases in public investment and the implementation of structural reforms at a time when the impact of the pandemic on government debt and deficit has been large. How do you think this can be achieved, and what do you think can be done in order to lessen the impact of the pandemic?
Question for me?
Yes. We see you go back.
Oh, no. I thank you. I didn't realize I was going to be asked a question, but let me make a quick comment if I can. First, we need to end the pandemic. We're not there yet because as of today, only 6% of the African population is fully immunized, for example. We know even that immunization is far from sufficient. We have to combine immunization with public health prudence, but we need immunization, and we're not achieving the most basic things of justice and sanity in the fair distribution of the vaccine. So unless we do that, we're not going to end the pandemic, so we won't even be able to talk about the post-pandemic world. Now, let's assume that we actually implement what we need to do to get this pandemic much more decisively under control. And we could do that. Then, in order for recovery, again, I'll speak as a macroeconomist, what I find to be most missing in the post-pandemic world is the scale of financing needed for all countries, including the poor countries, to be able to carry out green and digital recoveries and to make the kinds of investments that have been discussed for the last 2 weeks and also are part of the Geneva Challenge, because without budgets, it's not possible to do these things. And the poor countries cannot borrow the same way that the rich countries can. So I'm going to be spending much of my coming year working with the G20, especially the host country, Indonesia, to argue for a major scale up of financing for the low and the lower middle income countries so that there's budgetary space in order to ensure that kids are in school, people have access to health care, and that we can proceed with the massive implementation of renewable energy, digital connectivity, and other critical services. So I'm going to be putting my macro hat on the financing side, but then looking for those strong implementation programs on the local level to use so that the financing is directed for the right purposes.
Thank you for your answer. Another aspect, the pandemic has exacerbated the existing learning crisis. Around the world, more than 600 million youth have not mastered basic proficiency in mathematics and reading. And this will likely get worse. According to the estimates of UNESCO, around 117 million students are still affected by school closures. And the pandemic is affecting to a larger extent those who are already at greater disadvantage, including girls living in poverty. What do you think can be done in order to avoid further declines in education attainment and learning outcomes in the Global South?
One thing that I've learned in 21 years of advising the Secretary General of the UN is that during that entire period, primary and secondary education has been disastrously underfinanced. Even before the pandemic, there were more than 250 million school-age kids not in school. And the amount of international financing to help low-income countries to assure that quality teachers would be available in decent physical settings so that children would have a place to go to school was not being accomplished. This is a financial issue to an important extent because the technology of primary and secondary education, while not perfect, is also not a huge mystery. But the financing for low income, lower middle income, and crisis zone countries is not solved. So this is a big part of the problem. But I think that the pandemic also has highlighted another aspect of at least part of the solution, and that is digital online education. If young people have digital devices and access for free or at basically nominal costs to the digital education services. I have been teaching online for a long time, actually, in part, of course, blended in the classroom and online. I think it's a great way to reach people. I believe that with the digital education, online education, we could greatly supplement and bolster in-class education, enhance it, and also substitute it for places where there are just no schools or no qualified teachers. But again, this requires a strategy and financing. I'm glad that UNESCO and UNICEF are working together on a project called GIGA, which is to ensure that every school is online. It's a good idea. We should support that. We should accelerate it. Most of all, we should understand that it's a tragedy and a profound blunder to leave any child anywhere without access to education. It's crippling for life, and it's a devastating cost to society. And the cost of education is so small that we should take the firm commitment, what poor countries can't pay, the rich countries will pay the difference, so that we can say to every child, you will have a place in school, at least through upper secondary completion, which is the promise of SDG 4.
Thank you. And you have been promoting the expansion of university education on sustainable development. And you mentioned the network that you are chairing, the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, which, if I understand correctly, includes a group of US universities connected to a global network. Could you tell us something more about your experience and what do you find as being the challenging and opportunities you have encountered in mobilizing universities towards SDG-related research and collective action?
My experience is very positive, which is that universities around the world, when they know about the SDGs, want to work on them. The logic, I think, is irresistible. Universities are the places that bring knowledge together, knowledge from across a wide range of disciplines. Of course, each university may have its own particular groups of disciplines, but universities are the places where we can combine basic sciences, engineering, agronomy, the policy sciences, including economics and government public administration, the behavioral sciences. These are the areas that we need. Also, I should mention law, business school, teachers' universities and teachers' colleges. Universities bring together the range of expertise to address complex problems. They're not always organized initially that way, because when we organize in academic disciplines for academic journal writing, we're not necessarily organized optimally for complex problem solving. But universities understand that their role is to contribute useful knowledge to society. Of course, basic knowledge without question, but also useful applied knowledge. And that means useful systems design for delivery of complex tools and techniques across a range of hardware and software solutions, if I could put it that way. So we found in this network a great interest of universities around the world. We are organizing national chapters, regional chapters, and the global SDSN network. This morning, US time, I was in discussions with Chinese universities about US, Chinese, European three-way cooperation on these global challenges. And I find a tremendous interest in this, as well as a tremendous recognition by governments now that this is too complicated to do in a typical government office. Governments need to partner with the universities on complex problem solving.
A last question. One of the aims of our Geneva Challenge contest is to bridge the gap between academic research, practice, and policy making, and to give the opportunity to graduate students to contribute to the debate by proposing pragmatic solutions to advance development goals. What do you think are the right balances between research and public policy in the careers of those who care about development? And what advice would you give to our students, some of whom are about to start out their careers?
Thank you so much. I can first say there are many kinds of careers, not just one. So people that are working in basic scientific research, not engaged in public policy, we need you, obviously. Without the basic research, we wouldn't understand anything about the climate challenge, for example, and many, many of the other challenges that we face. But for people who are interested in global problem solving, from an intellectual point of view, I would say that having a professional approach that combines academic knowledge and rigor and practical, sleeves rolled up engagement is about as exciting as it can be. I'm speaking from my own predilections, of course. But what I have seen and experienced is that we really need the academic rigor, the ability to pass peer review, to get the models right, the footnotes properly done, to keep our orientation in accuracy and precision. But in order to understand a problem, boy, it's great to try to solve it. It's probably the deepest learning experience possible. Once you try to solve it, you say, oh, I thought the problem was about X, Y, and Z, but actually the real problems are about A, B, C, nothing that I thought at the beginning. That's been my frequent experience throughout my own career, which is that when you confront the problem in the field, you learn so much that is, I would say, academic knowledge. I once had a dean who said to me about my field work or policy advising, that's very nice, Jeff, but when are you going to get back to your real work? And by that, he meant my work in writing journal articles. But it gave me reflection. That was more than 30 years ago that I heard that statement. I've been at this a long time. And I think he was wrong, basically. He was also partly joking, but partly not. I feel that my real intellectual value in my academic side of the work has been enriched in ways that would never have been possible but for the engagement in the practical problem solving. So I hope our universities create the flexible spaces for this kind of dual approach, because I think that the dual approach is incredibly fruitful, mutually supportive. Of course, it allows for real implementation based on best knowledge, but it really enhances the knowledge base as well. That's not the non-academic side, that is the deepening of the academic side.
Thank you so much, Professor Sachs. That was a fascinating address. Thank you so much.
Thanks to all of you.
And I do hope that we will be able to welcome you someday in person here in Geneva at the Graduate Institute. Thank you very much again. We are now going to continue with the award ceremony of the contest, which will be chaired by Mr. Michael Muller, chair of our jury, and a strong supporter of the Geneva Challenge. Mr. Muller is currently the chairman of the Diplomacy Forum of the Geneva Science and Diplomacy Anticipator, senior advisor to macro advisory partners, and member of the board of several foundations. He has over 40 years of experience as an international civil servant in the United Nations. He began his career in 1979 with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and worked for the United Nations in different roles in New York City, Mexico, Iran, Haiti, Cyprus, and Geneva. Mr. Muller served as Director General of the United Nations Office in Geneva, as well as Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Disarmament. Prior to that, he served as Executive Director of the Kofi Annan Foundation. Before giving him the floor, we would like to show you a retrospective video presenting the Geneva Challenge and showcasing the vision of Ambassador Jeno Stalin and the last 7 editions of the contest. Once again, a very warm thanks to Jeno, to the team of the Geneva Challenge, and the communication team of the Gravity Institute.
My hope was to sensitize students from all parts of the world. My hope was awareness raising for the importance of sustainable development goals.
On the eve of the new millennium, as the world was facing unparalleled levels of challenges, leaders of 189 countries gathered in September 2000 at the United Nations in New York to sign the historic Millennium Declaration. They committed to achieving a set of 8 measurable goals by the target date of 2015. Kofi Annan, then UN Secretary General, was incremental in establishing the MDGs. Building on the momentum of the MDGs, all United Nations member states adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in 2015. At its heart are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which are an urgent call for action by all countries, developed and developing, in a global partnership. Ambassador Stellan, Swiss permanent representative to the United Nations from 2002 and 2004, was very much involved in the promotion and implementation of these SDGs.
The idea behind it is that future generations should be able to live as well as we do. I've always been of the opinion that when you talk about the future, we have to do that, including the young generation.
Today, more than ever, you need to take into consideration what we 20, 30-something-year-olds have to say. There is a dire need for intergenerational dialogues and youth perspectives on the ever-augmenting problems. The youth today is rebellious and outspoken, but we are also the go-getters and the change makers.
Civic engagement by the youth is indispensable in transforming conversations from dissent to peace and bringing about accountability, which is very important in the journey towards achieving sustainable development.
Challenge for older people many times is that we are locked in ways of the past. We have more difficulties in seeing how to transform. And young people see new possibilities and solutions, and we need that new approach.
Eager to stimulate reflection and innovation on key development issues from diverse disciplinary and contextual perspectives, Ambassador Stellan approached the director of the Graduate Institute with the idea of establishing a yearly international student competition.
And since I was at the same time member of the board of the Kofi Annan Foundation, I asked Kofi Annan whether he would accept to become the patron of this competition, which he graciously did.
I think that sort of competition challenges them to take on responsibilities. It challenges them to look at an issue, analyze it, and suggest a solution or a way of dealing with it. It also encourages them to work in a team that is often multinational, and you learn to respect each other's cultures and offer, hopefully, solutions to some of the problems of societies. And this is how we begin. When people ask me, how do I become a good global citizen? I always tell them it begins in your community, in your university, in schools, coming together to try to tackle an issue of concern to all of you, looking for a solution. And I think this is a very good training for future leaders and people who are going to help develop our world.
I think by now it's fairly unnecessary to convince anybody that the nature of the problems we're facing today will call for interdependent action, collective action. And so, having our students be involved in the Geneva Challenge is really one way in which to foster this sense of responsibility, this sense of engagement, which should actually be a sense of responsibility, a sense of engagement that we all feel individually.
In 2014, the idea became reality. Since its first edition, the Geneva Challenge has aimed to encourage interdisciplinary collaboration between 3 to 5 master students from around the world. Students are asked to develop projects that are theoretically grounded and offer pragmatic solutions to a relevant international development problem. Submissions are evaluated by an interdisciplinary academic steering committee that selects semi-finalist projects that are then reviewed by an independent jury of experts with diverse backgrounds. Finalist teams are then invited to present their projects in Geneva, where they defend their ideas and answer questions from the jury and public. Over the years, the Geneva Challenge has gathered more than 9,000 graduate students divided into 1,888 teams, representing more than 500 universities from all regions of the world. The first edition sought to address SDG 5 by tackling the challenge of empowering women for development.
There is no tool for development more effective than the power of women.
Empowering female sex workers in the city of Bogota.
The 2015 edition on how return migration can contribute to social or economic development.
I think it's safe to say that migration is a mega trend of the 21st century. It's going to be one of the big issues.
And you are all smart enough to have deduced from what I have just announced that the first prize and the check of Swiss franc 10,000 goes to the University of the Philippines.
In this third edition, the challenge was to address the complex issues arising from urbanization and how lives can be improved in an urban setting.
I'm here to engage with you in this institute with an inspiring body of scholars and the young audience to exchange views on the most important trends in our times, specifically urbanization and its role in supporting us as human beings and as leaders to foster sustainable development.
Our project consists in improving solid waste management systems within the city through implementing behavioral changes and enhancing and recognizing the role of waste pickers in the city.
The challenge of the 2017 edition was to address the complicated issues arising from employment.
We have the SDG 8 calling for the promotion of, quote, sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all.
Mvuzo is a mobile application that links job seekers with employers. It provides job seekers the ability to upskill themselves through training modules that are in a gamified process. So this incentivizes users to keep using the application. It also allows employers to look at job characteristics of the users who are using it and make better judgments about who they want to employ one day.
The 2018 edition of the contest addressed the challenges of climate change. In order to encourage reflection on SDGs and recognition for such efforts among students from all around the world, the jury decided from now on to award 5 prizes, 1 per continent.
We are now taking into consideration that there are regional realities, and we are having these regional awards that I think recognize the fact that a university in a certain region is not the same as a university in another region, and that everybody should be given an opportunity.
Our solution, Data Analytics for Sustainable Herding, DASH, aims to increase the adaptive capacity and improve the livelihoods of the most vulnerable population.
In 2019, students have been asked to address the intricate issues arising from global health.
We believe that our solution not only would help people in need, but also would prevent the severe consequences of improper disposal of medical waste. And by this, we truly believe that we can turn excess into access.
The theme for the 2020 contest was tackling the challenges of social inclusion.
Our project is on building a digital teletherapy platform for elderly who are socially isolated to connect with their families.
An international student competition like the Geneva Challenge allows participants to be part of the effort of advancing development goals, and also allows them to acquire additional skills and knowledge that may be helpful in their future careers.
I was part of a 4-person group, all from Bolivia, that were representing South America.
We were working on a project which was addressing a real-world problem while we were going through one ourselves. And that allowed us to push our limits and cultivate new skills in a short amount of time.
We had a great time just diving deep into the problem-solving mindset and the innovation space that really allowed us to tackle this from many different perspectives.
We looked at the problem practically and thought about the processes on ground rather than using the usual academic discourse which we are taught to use in our master programs, and that was the real learning experience.
I think one of the biggest lessons learned throughout the process was that you can really think of how to address a single issue from a variety of different perspectives. This is why taking on a multidisciplinary approach is so important.
Today, there are so many social, economic, and environmental problems that transcend national boundaries. And in the global discourse of sustainable development, it becomes all the more important for students like us who believe in an idea to do something and act upon the ideas that we can come up with.
Part of the experience of the Geneva Challenge is also to provide the finalist teams project implementation tools through a workshop in order to enable them to implement their own project, but also apply those new skills in their professional endeavors. We are immensely proud of our past cohorts and their incredible ideas to create a change in this world. Some teams went a step further to implement their project and made a significant difference to communities across the world. In 2020, the team from Africa presented the project VIFIRS, which aims to build the adaptive capacity of refugees and the host community in the Biribiri settlement in Uganda to land scarcity and rocky soil through the multi-story vertical farming approach. The goal of this project is to help them become self-reliant in overcoming food shortage and poverty. Since then, the team managed to establish viable partnerships with the different stakeholders and to construct 10 multi-story gardens for 10 groups across 10 communities.
I am Sai and I am a part of Team WISE from the 2020 cohort of Geneva Challenge. With our project, we wanted to formally integrate waste pickers into the waste management system, enhance their social dignity, and transform community behaviors contributing towards a sustainable environment. We went a step further to implement the project in Hyderabad, a metropolitan city in India. We started the project in 2021, however, pandemic proved to be a challenge for continuing implementation due to lockdowns, the deadly second wave in India, health and safety concerns. As more and more people are getting vaccinated, we look forward to restart our program with new enthusiasm and ideas for advocacy.
My message to participants is it's good to talk, but it's better to act. So get involved and don't wait. And be impatient, but patient at the same time. Be impatient in your quest for change, but patient in your endeavor to really make the change.
That was a great video. First, let me say a very warm thank you to Professor Jeffrey Sachs for his really enlightening and inspiring address, and to Professor Martina Viarengo for moderating this discussion. It's really a great pleasure and a privilege to have had him with us on the occasion of the award ceremony of the 2021 Geneva Challenge. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear finalist teams, both from this year and last year. This year we are hosting the 8th edition of the Geneva Challenge contest, following our call for proposals tackling the challenges of crisis management. This theme could quite clearly not have been timelier. The COVID-19 pandemic has proven to be not only a major health crisis worldwide, but also an economic and social calamity across the globe. It has deepened the existing inequalities and greatly slowed down the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. The just finished COP26 showed us in stark terms the extent of the unresolved, massive existential climate crisis that is threatening us all. But our Geneva Challenge provides a welcome ray of hope, as young participants from around the world show us their practical ideas and solutions to tackle these challenges. The numbers show it. This contest this year has embraced, the contest over the last few years, as we saw today, has embraced over 10,000 graduate students over the last 8 years. And as presented in the video we just saw, the challenge gathers contributions that are both theoretically grounded and offer pragmatic solutions to real-world problems addressed by interdisciplinary collaborations between groups of students. I would like to express the immense gratitude of all of us here tonight, but especially of all past, present, and future participants in this wonderful competition, to Ambassador Janusz Stalin, its founder and supporter, for having given the opportunity to all these young people to embrace challenges as opportunities and to give them an outlet for their innovative solutions and thus help them to advance the Sustainable Development Goals. Very special thanks to Marie Dorsal and her colleagues at the Graduate Institute for hosting this contest and for helping prepare the participants to work at the cutting edge of global challenges. This year, in spite of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Geneva Challenge received 83 excellent proposals from 243 universities across the world, and the 2021 cohort is composed of 114 different nationalities. We are extremely happy and grateful for this response. Our jury heard the excellent oral presentations from the 5 finalist teams for the 2021 edition this afternoon. And before moving on to the award ceremony, they will now have the opportunity to present their projects to you. They have very short time to do so, but they will present what they have done. 4 of the teams are present with us here in Geneva, and the team from Asia is with us online. So now let me start by inviting the team from Africa that did the project Wadaba, the Water Data Bank, to join me on the stage. You have the floor. Go ahead.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Team Africa, known as Wadaba, meaning Water Data Bank. Currently, the world is faced with the blue gold crisis. Countries such as the Democratic Republic of Congo is faced with the challenge of water resource management, despite its abundance in water resources. With low access rates to water, sanitation and hygiene services, triggered but not limited to mining activities taking place in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Likasi City in particular, water bodies have become repository of waste in all sorts. To solve this problem, we come up with a simple, inclusive, but innovative solution, given the acronym WADABA, meaning Water Data Bank. Through citizen science and perform analysis, WADABA will generate water quality data to help relevant authorities, stakeholders, and communities with adequate and concise information on pollution levels to aid the government water policy trust, investment, as well as remediation efforts. Analysis on water properties will be performed in situ and ex situ, depending on the parameters to be monitored. This will be carried out by our team experts as well as trained volunteers. Not forgetting, this project will engage in water quality advocacy through water clubs in schools to inform younger generation and water groups in the communities, including women. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Africa. I'd like now to call on Team Latin America with their project Motivo Sao Paulo, the Learning Network for Crisis Response.
So, good evening, you all. We're really happy to be here with you. So, the COVID-19 pandemic was extremely impactful for the Brazilian reality and for the state of São Paulo, which was responsible for 80% of the case spread in the country. Departing from this first learning moment, we proposed Motivo São Paulo, an online learning network for crisis response, focused on developing bottom-up mechanisms to address crisis. Our main argument is based upon two premises. One, that situated knowledge is an important aspect to avoid crisis to become broader and deeper. And second, as our project name stands for, cooperation is the best way of achieving solutions. Focus, and also bearing in mind that the greater multiplicity of opinions leads to more representative solutions too. In this sense, the core goal of our network is the production and spread of knowledge at the community level, empowering community leaders to identify and better respond to crisis. By the conjunction of epistemic communities and the empowerment of local leaders, we aim to build resilience. As Mário de Andrade said, past is a lesson to be meditated upon and not reproduced. Thus, Motivo São Paulo is the first step in meditating on the past in order to be prepared for future challenges that will certainly come. And before closing my speech, I would like to publicly thank Jefferson Luiz da Silva. It's one of our group members that unfortunately wasn't able to come and join us here. So I really thank him for his participation and from our professors from the Federal University of São Paulo. Thank you all, and thank you guys for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Team Latin America. And I now call on Team Europe to come and join me on the stage with Project ARDE, How to Manage Climate Change Crisis, One Meal at a Time.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Anna, and together with my team, we represent Europe. Before presenting our project, we'd like to thank the jury, the Academic Steering Committee, and the organizing team of the Geneva Challenge for enabling us to be here this evening. When the pandemic struck out, everybody had to redesign their daily habits. In particular, restaurants were closed to the public. That's why, in Italy, where eating is not only an action but a ritual, people started using food delivery systems. There, this industry has grown by the 30% in 2020. Nonetheless, the pollution caused by it has grown enormously too. That's why we have elaborated a more sustainable solution. ARDE is a food delivery system that is based on a circular business model, which is realized thanks to the adoption of stainless steel containers that can be used several times without damaging either the environment or the user's health. This system works through an app where users, after having registered, can select the cuisine. The difference from other food delivery companies stands in the fact that the order will come into a lunchbox made of stainless steel that has to be returned after the usage. The benefits of this system are many. From the client's point of view, we are providing a service that is environmental friendly at a very low cost. On the other hand, restaurants will save money in terms of packaging, app development, and will become part of a sustainable chain. Climate change crisis is a wicked problem that is linked to many different issues, and it's incredibly hard to manage. We believe that to manage climate change, we have to start by redesigning our daily habits. Therefore, the question that is at the heart of this project is it possible to have a more sustainable version of food delivery? We believe that it is, and that we could fight climate change 1 meal at a time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Team Europe. And now I'd like to call on Team North America with their project Bye Bye.
Thank you all for this wonderful opportunity. We are Bye Bye, the North American team looking to address the crisis of air pollution. Worldwide, the open burning of biomass accounts for millions of tons of carbon annually. A major contributor is crop stubble burning by farmers. In New Delhi alone, 40% of air pollution is caused by farmers in Punjab burning stubble. And our solution to this crisis is a digital marketplace that allows agricultural byproducts to be exchanged. This solution realigns incentives by providing farmers with an avenue to sell instead of burning their stubble. This also increases their financial stability and autonomy and provides a circular economy approach to buyers in industries like biofuel, textile, and composting, looking to use agro-waste as inputs. We truly believe that Bye Bye can help decrease stubble burning and thus address the crisis of air pollution that we face today. Thank you.
Thank you, Team North America. Team Asia couldn't be with us physically today, so we met with them online earlier on this afternoon. And for the presentation, they have sent us a video that we will see now.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bridget Lim, and on behalf of my teammates Arlene Chang and Ines Lim, I would like to first apologize for not being able to present in person. Nonetheless, we are honored, humbled, and grateful that we can present our project virtually. Our project, entitled Daan, is the Filipino term for road or way. It proposes an innovation to address the crises of food insecurity and malnutrition in the National Capital Region of the Philippines, which is a highly urbanized and vulnerable megacity. For the National Capital Region, logistics is a key factor to achieving zero hunger because food comes from suburban and rural provinces. However, local governments and exploitive citizens put up checkpoints on the road, which delays food deliveries, creates food waste, and increases food prices. Although an existing food lane policy has tried to address these problems by mandating the unhampered movement of agricultural and fishery delivery trucks with a physical food pass, these problems persist and were magnified with the onset of COVID-19. Hence, Daan proposes to digitize the paper-based food pass into a smartphone application called Daan. This would speed up the checkpoint passing process, promote systemic coordination, efficient logistics, and data-driven planning to reduce food waste and food prices. Ultimately, Daan aims to contribute to achieving SDG 2 by enhancing food system resiliency for food security and proper nutrition. This would also decrease the National Capital Region's vulnerabilities and risks to future crises. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Asia, and thank you all for these really, truly excellent presentations and projects. So we now come to the much awaited part of the evening, the award ceremony. And I take great pleasure in inviting the founder of the Geneva Challenge, Ambassador Stalen, to come to the stage and hand over the prizes to the team. Good, yeah. So we have awarded 5 prizes, 2 third prizes, 2 second prizes, and 1 first prize. And we will start with the third prizes. And I will first start, though, by asking Yvette Stevens, one of our jury members and the former permanent representative to the UN of Sierra Leone, to come and comment on the first prize, which is Team from Europe, ARDE, How to Manage Climate Change Crisis, 1 meal at a time. If you would join us on the stage.
Yes, we particularly appreciated this project because it addresses the problem of climate change. And we know that when people think about how to address this problem, most people are looking up to governments or what the public or the private sector can do. But this project shows that each one of us can have a contribution to address climate change. And we like that particularly. It also shows another thing, is that when we are looking for solutions, we could have innovative solutions which pulls from what has happened in the past. For instance, how did we get to this point now where we are all depending on plastic containers? Before, there has been example, for instance, in India, where stainless steel containers had been used to provide food. So basically, they used an innovative approach to what happened in the past to make sure that we can address this particular problem of plastic that have to be thrown, non-reusable, non-recyclable in some cases, that then goes into the environment and only worsens the situation that we face. So we particularly like this. The team did a very good, thorough job with a survey, and then they did market analysis, and also a SWOT analysis on the basis of which they arrived at this solution. Thank you.
Congratulations to Team Europe. We have to take a picture. It's my pleasure. Thank you. The other third prize goes to the team from Africa for Wadaba Water Data Bank. Please join us on the team. Michael's joined us. Michael Keating, the head of the European Institute of Peace, one of our jury members who will comment on this project. Go ahead.
Thank you. The jury thought that you are dealing with such an important issue, a crisis that is so consequential, and that the way you are going about it is simple, innovative, and implementable. Moreover, the basic concept of gathering data is very powerful because it can set a baseline. The way you're doing it to empower the people who are most directly affected, including women, in a way that can support local authorities, that can be the basis for holding those who are responsible for the problem to account, and doing it in a way that gives a voice to the people who are most affected, are fantastic. So we really commend you and the team for doing that. So really, congratulations on this. I think you're taking on a massive challenge in doing this, but in pioneering this, you're setting the way for other people to do it. And the approach you're adopting, I think, can be replicated in many, many other parts of the world. So congratulations, and thank you so much for the work you've done.
Congratulations again to Team Africa. The second prize, we also have two second prizes. The first one goes to the team from Asia for Dan, connecting concepts and paving a food-secure Philippines. They are far away from us, but I would like to ask Florian Schatz, our jury member, advisor to the German Development Corporation in Peru, to give us his comments on the project.
Thank you. Will we see them, or? I'm not sure. Okay. Just waiting a second.
Hi. Hi, we're here.
Perfect.
Other end of the screen.
Good evening or good morning in the Philippines. Dear Team Dan, we thank you very much for your proposal and congratulate you. We thought it was an excellent proposal and an excellent solution that you proposed. Let me give you a few points, a few recommendations, a few comments from the jury. First of all, we selected your proposal because we thought it was very relevant. The pandemic indeed has not only created a health crisis, but also a food security crisis in many countries around the world. And the example that you explained to us in your proposal and the solution that you proposed to us around this issue from Manila was very relevant. Secondly, you did a very thorough analysis and a comparative analysis. You not only analyzed the context of Manila and of the region, you also compared it to Singapore. And you applied lessons learned from Singapore to your context to find a solution to this issue of food security in Manila or in the Philippine capital region. We thought by digitizing this food pass that exists in the region, you proposed a very simple solution to an existing problem, benefiting actually from a non-digital solution that was already out there. By digitizing it, make it more transparent, creating more incentives for different stakeholders, such as local governments, to participate, to not undermine the system, and eventually increase food security in the region. So we thank you very much for this proposal, and congratulate you again for your work, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And with the, maybe with the thing, no? Let's see that as well.
What happened? They disappeared. And now to the second prize, which is given to the team from Latin America, Montero Sao Paulo, the Learning Network for Crisis Response. And I also ask our jury member, Maria Luisa Silva, the former head of the UNDP office here in Geneva, to join us and to comment on the project.
Boa tarde, parabéns pela sua excelente proposta. Yeah. No, there were two issues actually that I would like to highlight that the jury particularly liked in assessing your proposal. I think the first one was your focus on empowerment. No? As you very well say, it's people and their institutionalized cooperation that is absolutely essential to overcome and address a crisis. And this may seem very obvious, but too many times we fall in the technology trap. We confuse means with aims, and then that leads us to failure. I think the second reason why we really like your proposal is because you very well considered all the different disciplines and actors that have to be taken into consideration in a crisis. You didn't opt for reductionist approach. You look at the situation with its full complexity as reality is, and try to really come up with a solution that will give all these different actors and themes the right space. And there, let me also appreciate that you have opted for an evidence-based approach. I mean, we're at a world that too many times truth and solutions are leaving aside, and we're just opting for feelings and emotions. And the fact that you have put science and knowledge at the center of your proposal is also that the jury appreciated very much. So, muito obrigada, boa sorte, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Congratulations again to the team from Latin America. And that brings us to the first prize, which goes to the team from North America for their project Bye Bye. Please join us.
All right, this is much easier in person now than talking to a screen. So congratulations. Thank you very much for your great proposal. And as you can see, we all agree that it was excellent. We were very convinced by it, and we thank you very much for your work. Why did we select your proposal? We thought it was a win-win-win proposal. It was showing us positive benefits for environment, for air pollution in particular, for farmers in terms of income generation, etc., and also for buyers who could use this crop stubbles for the different products that they were developing. So it was not only tackling one SDG at a time, but several, which is actually the purpose of this contest. So that was very convincing for us. And then we also thought, actually, the work you've done made us think it was almost ready to implement. You've done all your analysis, your market research, even your budget, your costings, etc. This is a proposal that is ready on the table. If anyone in the room wants to support it, I'm making some publicity. This proposal is really implementable from our point of view. It just needs some seed funding, which we hope you can get through this prize of the Geneva Challenge. It needs some work, probably mostly of you, of an excellent team working of it. And we really hope that you can make this become reality. So thank you very much again for your proposal. Congratulations.
We have one more. A very warm congratulations to all the winners. And let me also express our collective hope that you will all continue your determined work to advance the Sustainable Development Goals. We have one more prize. And last but not least, we have a special award from the Sustainable Development Solutions Network that Professor Sachs mentioned before, youth organization that was launched by him in 2015 to place young people at the forefront of achieving the SDGs. And this year, this special prize goes to the React Flood Mapping Project. And I would now like to invite up to the stage the team from Stanford University to present their project.
Good evening, everyone. It is such an honor to be here tonight in Geneva, receiving this award and surrounded by so many new friends who are also passionate about creating sustainable impact.
Climate-related disasters leave low-income communities in recovery mode for years, waiting on trickling aid from governments and nonprofits, which can be bureaucratic and poorly targeted. And while resources flow in to these organizations at the peak of disasters, little effort is allocated on technological innovation prior to the next emergency.
However, with climate impacts increasing, the time to act is now. With smart cities on the rise, we have envisioned a system of water detection sensors that could measure water levels in flood-prone neighborhoods and allow that data to be publicly made accessible to communities, governments, and relief organizations. The sensors themselves could live on public infrastructure like light posts, and then that data would feed into interfaces for key stakeholders, creating this kind of smart city. And our hope is that this would enable smarter flood prevention decisions and also create a public record, historical, that would allow for holding the government accountable going forward for effective mitigation.
We aim to pilot with a partner municipality in order to demonstrate real-world feasibility and then scale our impact. We believe this technology paves the way for tackling the climate crisis with equitable solutions, ensuring that marginalized communities who are most often left vulnerable to natural disasters are included in our climate future.
We'd also love to take the opportunity to thank our partner organizations that help make this project a reality. SBP, West Street Recovery, and the Harvey Forgotten Survivor Caucus, all of them that we worked with in Houston, Texas. These organizations shared with us their firsthand experiences with natural disasters and were really instrumental in co-designing this with us. So if you have a moment, we would really encourage you to look up these organizations and learn a little bit about their rebuilding and advocacy.
And last but not least, we would also like to thank the Stanford Design Impact Program, our family, mentors, friends, who were all extremely important in the development of this project. So thank you so much.
Thank you, team. Stay where you are. We'll hand over a prize in a moment, but before that, I'd like to invite Lena Menge, the project manager of the Geneva Challenge, to the stage to read out the feedback that was given by the SDSN youth team.
Yes, thank you very much, Michael. The SDSN youth team just regrets not being here today, but they're looking forward to take contact with all the finalist teams of tonight to go on and work together with their network. So let me just read the message they wanted to convey to you tonight. So today we stand at a very challenging crossroad, one that will be altered beyond repair with the climate crisis. The impact of global warming is multifaceted and has the potential to affect incomes, social structures, access to basic facilities like water, healthcare, and education, showing us once more that the sustainable development goals are extremely essential. Thus, as the youth raises its voices for a better future, the urgency for swifter and a more widespread action is crucial. The youth today is more determined than ever before, with an unparalleled ability of driving true change. Project React Flood Mapping is an example of exactly this, disguised as a solution working toward SDG 13 climate action. Its impact is spread across SDGs 1, 3, 6, 9, 11, and 16, and in fact, many more. The detailed and tremendous work that the team has done is evident in the quality, thoroughness, and scalability of their solutions. We hope that one day soon, cities and towns across the world will be equipped with the team's water detection sensors, helping communities and governments with disaster management and prevention. Until then, it is safe to say that their work will act as an inspiration for the youth trying to channel their abilities towards implementing real and sustainable change. Congratulations once again.
Thank you, Lena. With this, we come to the end of the ceremony. In closing, I have the pleasure to announce that the 2022 edition of the Advancing Sustainable Development Goals contest will address the challenges of poverty reduction. Today, more than 700 million people around the world still live in extreme poverty. And while the Millennium Development Goals target of reducing extreme global poverty by half was achieved 5 years before the 2015 deadline, recent estimates from the World Bank show that we are now facing the real possibility of the reversal of that achievement in a post-COVID world. Clearly, therefore, the complex task of overcoming global poverty remains a pressing issue, and we invite graduate students from around the world to develop and present innovative and interdisciplinary solutions that address the global challenges of poverty reduction. I invite you all to spread the word on this topic of the next Geneva Challenge and encourage people to participate. I thank again all our participants for their extraordinary work and all of you for joining us tonight. Stay well and safe, stay involved and active. Every one of us has a responsibility to help solve our global existential challenges. Thank you and God bless.